headlights never seem to change. Day in and day out, they always stay the same. Concrete's growing, the city's moving in, and there's progress for progress' sake. They think they know what's best for us and how to change our backwards ways. We stand for the flag. You can be damn sure that we're thankful for everything we have. We love this land. Every inch paid for by blood and sweat and the strength to take a stand. You might think that it's a really cool ride. Way out here, we still stand for the flag. That died, gave their lives, knew what they were fighting for. Sacrifice and innocence left on a foreign shore. These colors still fly here high and proud, the red, the white, the blue. If you think they're coming down, I got some news for you. We stand for the flag. You can be damn sure that we're thankful for everything we have. We love this land. Every inch paid for by blood and sweat and the strength to take a stand. You might think that it's a really cool ride. Way out here, we still stand for the flag. From sea to shining sea, there's still a lot of good old boys like me. We stand for the flag. You can be damn sure we're thankful for everything we have. Love this land. Every inch paid for by blood and sweat and the strength to take a stand. You might think that it's a bellhead for a rag. Way out here, we still stand for the flag.
Welcome to HomeFront Sitrep. I hope you're in for a great show today, because I'm just a veteran talking about what's on my mind and maybe yours.
You can find HomeFront Sitrep on Apple, Amazon, Spotify, or wherever you find your favorite podcasts. You can also check out HomeFront Sitrep's YouTube channel.
Buckle up, the show is starting.
Mic in hand, ready for deployment. Podcast feels heavy as the ointment. Veteran tales straight from the trenches. Pop culture splices, pulling down the fences. HomeFront Sitrep, stories that collide. Veterans speaking truth, no reason to hide. Gritty and raw podcast on replay, decoding the past, paving the way. War zone whispers, bullets and bombs. Back to civilian ticking like a time bomb. Medals on the mantle, scars on the mind. Every episode another mystery to find. HomeFront Sitrep, voices from the fight. Veterans sharing dark, stepping into light. Real life saga, not some fairy tale. Truth and resilience, never gonna fail. HomeFront Sitrep, stories that collide. Veterans speaking truth, no reason to hide. Gritty and raw podcast on replay, decoding the past, paving the way. War zone whispers, bullets and bombs. Back to civilian ticking like a time bomb. Medals on the mantle, scars on the mind. Every episode another mystery to find. Legacy 11 X, story of Marines. Army anecdotes, Gulf War scenes. Vietnam echoes, Desert Storm sounds. Podcast chronicles, glory and bounds. HomeFront Sitrep, honesty is core. Veterans laying bare what they endure. From the front lines to the homebound grief, episodes of grit. grind through the grief.
Welcome everybody to a Sunday edition of HomeFront Sitrep. How is everybody doing? Hopefully everybody had a great week and ready to start next week off with a bang. Tonight we're going to do something a little different. Gunny is on vacation. He is out of the country at the moment. I told him to take me with him, but he said no. So you're stuck with me tonight. But that's okay. We're going to do something a little different. So this is Women's Military History Month, which is super cool because we have been talking here recently about all kinds of things when it comes to related to female veterans compared to male veterans and the disparity of the treatment that female veterans get compared to male veterans. I don't know if it's a generational thing or what, but we're not going to really dive into that tonight. We're going to really dive into the history of females in the military, which is something that we all should think about because over 200 years, females have served in the military some way, some form, some fashion. So tonight, I'm going to bring on Miss Clara Colburn and Mr. Andrew Prater, and we're going to talk about some of the people, some of the females in the military. We're going to highlight some of the most influential women. I had to think about it there for a minute. Influential women in the military dating back to the Civil War, the Revolutionary War, all the way back. So we're going to talk and highlight them. What's going on, Mr. William Stevens? How are you tonight, sir? So yeah, it's definitely going to be an interesting subject because there's all kinds of females out there that have done amazing and extraordinary things in the military, and for females to be disregarded the way they are, it saddens me to see because like females in my life that are very prominent, my mother, my grandmother, I have the utmost respect for because for one, my mom raised 4 kids on her own. Now, granted, my brother died in 1994 at the age of 10, but my mom still carried on and raised the other 3 of us. And I think she did a great job for the circumstances that she was put under, as a single mom in the late 80s. She was 15 when she had my first sister. And then I came along 2 years later. So, it's one of those things. But females have played a very prominent role in military history, and we need to highlight them. Not just 1 month a year. I think they need to be highlighted just like their male counterparts. So, without further ado, let's bring Miss Clara up to the stage and Mr. Andrew up to the stage. Welcome. How are you guys?
Good. How are you?
Doing wonderful. Doing wonderful. All right, so let's do this. Let's start off with Mr. Andrew Prater. Introduce yourself to our audience if you don't mind.
Yep. So I am Andrew Prater. I'm also known as Stalls. I run VB 422 or Veteran Bikers for 22 a day, nonprofit organization trying to bring awareness to the 22 a day epidemic. But here recently, I've actually been doing an episode on my TikTok, highlighting the historical women of military history. Other than that, I spent 8 years in the Army. I was a medic. I got out in 2012, and since then, I've just been kind of doing me. So,
Heck yeah. No, I love it, man. I love what you're doing. You're especially the VB 422, and then now you're doing your series on influential women in the military. I mean, it's something that needed to be done. I know we had some good conversations about females in the military. With me and you both being males, we had to have a female perspective, and that's where Miss Claire comes in. Miss Claire, won't you do me a favor and introduce yourself to the world. And I want to give a shout out to Mr. Shannon Book down there. If you don't follow Shannon Book, you need to go follow Shannon Book. He is a musician. His music is phenomenal. Go give Mr. Shannon Book a follow, everybody. So welcome, Miss Clara.
Hi, thank you for having me. Yeah, so my name is Clara Colburn. I was also in the Army. Um, I'm obviously a lot younger than you guys as well, so that's kind of another perspective I can give. I know. But yeah, I think, um, you know, being able to highlight, women in the military, past, present, hopefully inspiring the future and is going to be super important. And I really appreciate you for taking the time, both of you actually, for taking the time to highlight those of us who, maybe would not normally get the recognition or, would not be known if it weren't for you guys doing what you're doing. So I appreciate you a lot. Thank you.
Well, you're very welcome. So you served in the military. How long did you serve for?
So I didn't serve for that long, unfortunately, due to some medical issues while I was in. Um, I had to get out early, so I served. Hold on, trying to do the math. Just over a year before I had to get out. And I want to kind of preface that I know that's kind of a short time and stuff like that, but unfortunately, due to circumstances that were very much out of my control, I had to be med boarded out. So yeah, it's kind of one of those things where I really didn't want to, but I was kind of told I had to, sort of thing.
So what was the med board process like for you?
Horrible.
I hear
Horrible.
that a lot. I hear that a lot, even from from male veterans, that the med board process is terrible. So
Yeah.
that's crazy.
Yeah, and for me, it was kind of different as well because of where I was at in my military career. Um, it wasn't like, you know, hey, it's never a quick process. Nothing in the military is a quick process, unfortunately. That kind of just is how it is. Um, but yeah, it was just very tedious and long and very much having to prove to a lot of different people that it wasn't me just wanting to get out sort of thing. Because trust me, I did not, like, I fought it for so long. And eventually I was just like, yeah, I'm done, So
Yeah, that's
kind of is
crazy.
what it is at that point. But mm,
So you still signed your name on the dotted line, no matter how long you served. You still signed your name on that dotted line. And that's all that matters. And a lot of
yeah,
people, they will look at veterans that have got a dishonorable discharge or whatnot, as not being veterans. But here's the thing: they still served. They still signed their name on that dotted line and chose to serve their country. Which
right.
there's a lot of people out there that don't want to serve their
Mm,
country. And the way I look at it, yeah, you might have a bad chicken dinner or other than honorable, um, but you still signed your name on that dotted line, so you still served.
absolutely.
Which is, I guess I'm an oddball when it comes to that because there's a lot of veterans out there that says, "Hey, if you got a bad chicken dinner, then I'm not going to recognize you." But it is what it is. So let's
Right.
start talking about some of the most influential women in military history. Andrew, do you want to start off with who I'm talking about?
Yeah, so obviously we all know that Medal of Honor winners, they have won
Hold on,
the
hold on,
highest
hold on.
award.
They're not winners; they're
All right, my
recipients.
bad. Recipients. I apologize. Recipients. But Medal of Honor recipients, they've got the highest award possible in the military, and unfortunately, out of almost 3,500 recipients, there's only one female. And actually, from 1917 to 1977, there was zero females. Mary Edwards Walker was and is the only female recipient of the Medal of Honor. She actually got it. She dressed up as a man during the Indian Wars, and served as a surgeon. Um, and basically, when she got when the Indian Wars were over with, she was, you know, awarded the Medal of Honor, and then she started the whole feminist movement in the early 1900s, and then in 1917 the award was stripped from her. And it actually wasn't until 1977 when Gerald Ford reinstated her Medal of Honor. So
Mm, that's crazy. Yeah, so I'm gonna read a little bit of snippet here. This is from uh, Customized Girl blog, I believe is what it's. Yeah, custom customizedgirl.com blog, the 20 most influential female veterans of all time. And this is what it says about Dr. uh Mary Mary Edwards Walker. Mary Walker was born in 1832 in New York as the youngest of five daughters and one younger brother. At the beginning of the American Civil War, she volunteered for the Union Army as a civilian nurse. As the Army had no female surgeons, after years of non paid service, she was finally awarded a commission as a contract acting assistant surgeon, becoming the first ever female U.S. Army surgeon. During her career, she frequently crossed battle lines to treat the injured civilians. And on April 10th, 1864, she was captured by Confederate troops and arrested as a spy. She was released that August in exchange for another prisoner and went on to serve in several other battles, supervise orphanages, become a writer and lecturer supporting healthcare, temperaments, women's rights, and dress reform for women. Needless to say, she was a badass. Needless to say.
she was she was a badass. Yes. Um, she she was actually part of the forefront of the women's feminist movement too in the early 1900s. Using her voice and her what we would call clout these days, as a Medal of Honor recipient. So, and I think that's what ultimately got it stripped from her.
Yeah, probably so. I mean, because you got to think with the United States not having the women's rights until 1970 something. It just I can see an outspoken female back in the day that was a Medal of Honor recipient getting it taken away because here you're in a male dominated uh, service at the time, and them not liking it. It's kind of like today when you go up against a superior officer, general or whatnot, and he don't like the fact that you're, knocking him or proving him wrong. He's going to write you up and give you an Article 15, and wind up taking your career from you. So unfortunately, that still goes on in today's military. Where they sweep shit underneath the rug. They do it all the time,
Yep.
and it just blows my mind that a chain of command will sweep that under the rug. I had a
Yep.
Navy commander on that was alcohol took over his life, right? And he was at a party and he made unwanted advances to a female counterpart that was there at the party. And she didn't press charges. Like basically, he said it would never happen again. And kind of she swept it underneath the rug. Well, the next party that happened, he also did the same thing to another sailor, and she went to chain of command. Well, after she came forward, the other female came forward, and he spent time in the brig, and he basically admitted to it, like it was nothing, like nothing sexual or anything. It was just unwanted advances, like just the way he was talking to him and stuff like that. And he served his time in the brig. He got out. They took his rank from him, took his pension from him. They did everything, and now he has recovered. Like he's recovered, and he's now running an organization that helps with alcohol abuse, drug abuse, and stuff like that. And he's turned his life around. And it's just amazing that sometimes that could happen, but in other times where the chain of command just sweeps it underneath the rug completely, and then the female has to suffer from that. Because for one, they're like, if you don't sweep it under the rug, you're not getting promoted, or they force them out of the military, which is ridiculous in my book. Miss Lacey James, I hope
Right.
you're having a blessed Sunday in South Dakota as well. Miss Clara, who are some of the females that you admire from the military?
Yeah, so I kind of have a big list because there is a lot of them that are out there that are very, very cool and very, very, good at what they do and all those things. My first one is Christian Grease. She is one of the first two women, along with Cheyenne Haber, I think is how you say it, her last name, to graduate Ranger School. So why I kind of picked her as my first and top kind of influential woman in the military, or I guess two of them, is because you don't often see women doing all that crazy, ranger stuff and all that, right? And when you do, it's kind of one of those things that, when women in the military accomplish those type of things, it's, oh, she did XYZ just to get a spot, or she did XYZ just to pass, or she wasn't held to the same standards, or, stuff like that. That happens not just with, extra cool ranger stuff, but that happens all the time in the military, right? Our accomplishments, whether we did super amazing or not, are often downplayed, right? Because of us being a woman, us being a female. It's not as hyped up or as cool when you're a female to do it. But in my opinion, I think it's even cooler because, how many do you see? I mean, how many in general do you see passing Ranger School? And then how many women do you see passing Ranger School, right? So it just shows and proves to everyone out there that, we're not just quote unquote sleeping our way to the top or getting an easier way to, our path isn't easier. If anything, it's harder sort of thing,
Yeah, I definitely agree. So I was infantry. When I was in the military, I never saw females when I was in. Of course, I was in from
Mhm.
97 to '01, and then I got recalled after 9/11 happened. Even still,
Mhm.
I never saw females while I served. So it was nothing that I had to uh my perspective on females in the military. I have none because I didn't serve with females while I was in. Uh and you do hear a lot of times, oh, well, she slept her way to the top. And here's the way I look at it. If a female can prove herself and she can do the same thing that her male counterparts can do, like the lady that went through Ranger School. I remember hearing about that on the news, because
Mhm.
they scrutinized that like crazy. I- If
Yep.
she, if any female out there can prove by their own merit that they are worthy and they can do the same job as their male counterpart, let them do it. That's the way I look at it. Because
Mhm.
there are females out there that could whoop my ass. There's females out there that could whoop Stalls' ass. And, it just, if they can do the same job as me or Stalls or any other male that's in the military, let them do it.
Mhm.
Because I'm a father of two young females. One just turned 18. The other one will be 17 in September, and both of them plan on joining the military. And I think that they're very capable young ladies, and if they set their mind to it, they're going to be able to do it out there. And unfortunately, with you know m- prior military guys that were prior to my service, think that females shouldn't be in the military. And I know there's some in my generation that believe the same thing, but I guess I'm one of the lucky ones because I don't believe it. I think if a female can do the same job that I do, and there's many females out there that prove that they could probably do the job better than I, let them do it, and don't downgrade them because they slept their way to the top, or they must have some dirt on the commander or something like that. It's just it's crazy.
Mhm.
Yep,
So Rich Monica,
absolutely.
he's the host of Misfit Nation. He said, "Now Major Kirsten Greist is a badass. Was here in the 101st when she went to Ranger
Mhm.
School. Commanded an infantry company at Bragg later."
Yeah,
Uh,
she's a very, very, very cool lady. That's for dang sure.
Heck
Oh
yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
Stalls, who else you want to talk about?
Well, actually, we got to talking about the two females that completed Ranger School, and it kind of got my brain going. So I had started this series on Monday, the first Monday of March, and my intention was to do a episode every day. Unfortunately, I've been sick the last couple of days. I haven't felt very good, so I haven't been able to put together any episodes. But one of my episodes this week was going to be on Captain Linda Bray. Now, not to throw you under the bus, Willis, about your age, but you probably were old enough to remember Operation Just Cause.
Yes.
So, um, she was actually in command of the 988th Military Police Company during Operation Just Cause, and she is known as the very first woman to lead troops in combat.
Nice.
Yeah. So, she actually served from 82 to 91. Um, Military police. She went to ROTC and then later commissioned as an officer. She was medically retired in 1991. So
Mm,
I think had she continued on, she probably could have been, you know, a general. Like the very first four-star general in the armed services was Ann Dunwoody. She was the first four-star general. I mean, you have all sorts of women who've done amazing things. The first African American female was Kathy Williams, and she actually had to dress up as a man to enlist. But you
yep.
have Marcella Hayes, which is one of the episodes that I did. She was the first female aviator. When she got her aviation wings at Fort Rucker, she was one of 56 women to have received her aviator wings. Um,
Mm.
but there's all sorts of famous people. I didn't know if you knew, but Bay Arthur, which was an
B. Arthur.
actually
Yeah.
she was actually one of the Golden Girls. She
Yep.
was a typist and a truck driver in the U.S. Marine Corps.
Yes,
So
sir.
so there's a lot of influential women and a lot of women who have served. And being a medic, I got to serve with women and train with women. And I'm not gonna lie to you, I was good at PT, but there were some girls who could outdo me in PT. All right, so I know for a fact that um just because you're a woman doesn't make you any less of a soldier,
Yeah, definitely.
or an airman, or a corps. I don't know what you guys call yourself in the Marine Corps, but I'm just going to say a troop in the Marine Corps. So um
We're devil
it-
dog.
I think there you go, devil dogs. But it doesn't make you guys any less, and I think that's what a lot of times, like I know, somebody who's in our community is actually has actually gone somewhere where someone mentioned that she was a veteran too and got dismissed because she's a female. So I'm sure there's a lot of females out there that if they wore a shirt that said, thank a veteran, they would be somebody would ask, "Oh, is that shirt for your husband or your dad or your brother?"
Yeah.
People wouldn't
Yeah.
think twice to go, "Hey, actually, thank you for your service." So,
Well,
how many
there's an
times has a female been thanked?
there's an organization down in South Carolina, Brooke Con Jackson created it, and it's called She's the Veteran. And how that started was her and her husband were out, and they were walking to her car, and somebody come up to her husband and said, "Thank you for your service." Husband never served a day in his life, and he looked at the person that said that, and he said, "No, I'm not the veteran, she's the veteran." So they created the nonprofit She's the Veteran, to bring awareness to female veterans. Now they started in Charleston, South Carolina, and it was just local to that area. They recently have expanded to the whole state of South Carolina, and eventually their 5-year, 10-year plan is to bring She's the Veteran world to the nation, and have chapters in each state to highlight the female veterans in that area. And I heard a story, and this is a Purple Heart female veteran, and y'all probably know who I'm talking about. She pulled into a grocery store and parked in the Purple Heart spot that was there because she just had to run in real quick and run right back out. And before she even got out of her truck, there's a little old man that came up behind her vehicle and started screaming at her, and all this crazy stuff, saying that she don't belong in that parking spot, and she shouldn't be utilizing it. And it got to the point where uh, an employee came out of the store and said, "Ma'am, is everything okay?" And she's like, "I need you to call the cops." And so the cops get there, and the cops go to the old man first before going to the female. And then once the cop came over to the female veteran, she had to basically prove who she was, that she was the Purple Heart veteran, and all of this. And I don't think females should have to go through that. Here it is, her truck. She's parking there. Her license plate says that she's a Purple Heart veteran. That little old man should have just kept walking on. He shouldn't have been a Kevin. He should have just kept walking on.
Right.
It's crazy out there. And
It's to go along with your point. Um, you know, when I was awarded the Purple Heart, someone in my family bought a hat and gave it to me, and I've never worn that hat out in public. But if I was one of those people who, wore that hat out in public, nobody would stop and think twice about it.
no,
I'd probably get a thank you for your service or hey, thank you for serving or whatever. But anybody like had Claire been awarded the Purple Heart and she wore that hat out in public, people would question it.
oh
And
yeah,
unfortunately, and that's unfortunate because there are probably several women from the Iraq and Afghanistan campaigns who earned a Purple Heart and fought valiantly after being wounded. And if they wore that hat, they'd get questioned like that. Prove it.
oh yeah.
Prove
They're
you
afraid.
prove you prove you are who you are.
Yeah, they're afraid, and female veterans shouldn't be afraid. For one, they shouldn't be afraid to take pride in their service. For two, they shouldn't have to hide, which is crazy to me. I know Miss Betsy Ross. I think she's watching on TikTok right now. I've had her on and interviewed her, and she has an amazing story. Um, she wrote the Fight series. I don't know if you guys have heard of the Fight series. If you hadn't, I highly recommend buying her books and reading them. They're fact based fiction books, but there's a lot of things that we as veterans, female and male veterans, go through, and then there's other things that only female veterans go through in her books. And the emotions run rampant through that. If you have Kindle Unlimited, you can download them for free on Kindle Unlimited right now. But Miss Betsy Ross is amazing, so you go to fightwithbetsyross.com and check out her books. So let's talk about some unsung females that served in the military. They didn't start out serving in the military, but they wind up being part of the military. And the first one I can think of is Harriet Tubman. When she first started doing what she was doing, she wasn't in the military. But by the end of doing the Underground Railroad, she had joined, or they had brought her into the military. I don't remember the whole story on her, but here she is. Thank you, Miss Andrea. Miss Andrea, she's with We the People podcast. They do amazing things over there as well. So yeah, Harriet Tubman. Harriet Tubman was a military leader and Union spy during the Civil War. Most know Harriet Tubman from her groundbreaking work with the Underground Railroad. So yeah, like I said, she didn't start out in the military, but eventually she got into the military and continued her mission with the Underground Railroad, and later became a spy, which I think is super, super cool that, because back then males didn't look as females as, oh, they could serve in the military. So utilizing females back then as spies, that was very ingenuous. Yeah, however you say that word. It was very smart of whoever came up with that idea to use female veterans as spies. All right, Miss Claire, who else? I know you said you had a whole list of female veterans that are military females that you aspired and looked up to. So give us another.
Yeah. So my next one, kind of a little bit of context about her. She is now currently a politician. But she's also a veteran. She was a helicopter pilot. Her name is Tammy Duckworth. And she didn't necessarily have an outstanding military career. The reason I kind of wanted to talk to her was because of what she did while she was, working for the VA and that type of stuff as a veteran. Because I feel like that's kind of a very important topic right now. But yeah, she was, in 2009, she was nominated to be the Assistant Secretary of Public and Intergovernmental Affairs at the VA. And her basically big thing that she did for the VA was she did the initiative for the Department of Housing and Development and Urban Development project. So essentially she is pretty much one of the people who really pushed to address veteran homelessness and veteran, those type of issues that so many veterans face, right? And she also worked with the online communications department at the VA to help make it more online accessible for kind of the younger veterans, because again, veterans my age, and that's not a dig on you guys. I'm sure you guys do a lot of stuff online, obviously, but kind of what she did to make the VA services and the VA as a whole, department, accessible online was huge for the younger generation and huge for my generation of veterans. So that's kind of why I picked her. She kind of, did her big stuff after the fact, after her military service, but that again doesn't discredit her military service. But because she was a veteran, she kind of understood more of the, veteran side of things and kind of what the veterans as, a group
Yeah.
of people needed, right?
Well, the HUD-VASH program, which is what she was very instrumental
Mhm.
in doing, has saved countless veterans' lives.
Oh yeah.
And unfortunately, with the HUD-VASH program, depending on what state you live in, what county of that state you live in, is how many HUD-VASH vouchers are available for homeless veterans. I was talking with Transcend 214, Mika, and she was talking about her county that she lives in, Alabama, that there was only uh, 5 HUD-VASH vouchers for her county. And she's
Right.
like, we have way more veterans, homeless veterans, than the 5 HUD-VASH vouchers. Now, the thing with the HUD-VASH vouchers is they're not a long-term voucher.
Right.
They're mainly a short-term voucher to help a veteran get off the streets, get back on their feet, and then they, eventually can drop out of the HUD-VASH system, and then that voucher could go to
Mhm.
somebody else later on.
Right.
And we were doing a tiny home project here in Louisville for homeless veterans, and it had 29 houses. And luckily, our county that we were doing the tiny home community in was going to be able to support 29 veterans at a time with the HUD-VASH. So that's pretty awesome that, she was very instrumental in getting that created. I think it
Mhm.
still has a long way to go when it
Oh,
because look
100%.
look how many homeless veterans are out there. Now, granted, I know that there's a buttload of homeless veterans out there that want to stay homeless because they don't want to feel like they're tied to the man, is a lot of the veterans that have said that I've talked to, homeless veterans that I've talked to, um, they would prefer to be on the streets than be um, tied to the system again. Um, but yeah, the HUD-VASH vouchers out there, d- they don't just help homeless veterans, but if you're a veteran and you're in need, you can reach out to the HUD-VASH system, and they can help you pay for your rent. They have, yeah, like Lacey just says. Um, is that in conjunction with the work RE program? Yes, it that kind of works with that program. The HUD-VASH vouchers do, Lacey. Yeah, the vocational rehab. Yeah. Um, So, I'm looking here. All right, this is 200 years, over 200 years of service, the history of women in the U.S. military. Now, this starts back at the Revolutionary War, right? Um, at, during the War, as colonial militias armed themselves and joined George Washington's Continental Army, many of these soldiers' wives, sisters, daughters, and mothers went with them. These women traveled alongside the Continental Army, where they boosted morale as well as mended clothes, tended to wounds, foraged for food, and cooked and cleaned both laundry and cannons. So that's where the role that females played during the Revolutionary War. I can't even talk tonight for some reason. Um, and then that some women found ways to join the fight for independence. Margaret Corbin, for example, disguised herself as a man and traveled with her husband to the front lines of the Battle of Fort Washington, where she helped him load his cannon. So even back then, women were finding ways to serve in the military. And then here it says during the Civil War, nearly 20,000 women lent their skills and efforts in everything from growing crops to feed Union troops to cooking in Army camps. Other tasks included sewing, laundering uniforms and blankets, and organizing donations through door-to-door fundraising campaigns. Um, and then it says, notably, during the Civil War, that women began to serve as nurses on a much larger and more official scale, approximately 3,000 women served as nurses for the Union Army during the war. Um, legendary nurse and founder of the Red Cross, Clara Barton, even received a special military pass that permitted her to travel directly onto the battlefield. How many of you that served in the military ever got a Red Cross letter, because you had to come back home because of family member's death or something of that? Clara Barton, female who served in the military during the Civil War, created the Red Cross, which is still going strong today. I think that's very, very influential, which a lot of people probably don't even know that a female created the Red Cross. And then it goes into other wars as well. You got World War One, where the U.S. Army Nurse Corps, the ANC, formally established in 1901. Um, and then by 1918, just over a year later, there was more than 3,000 nurses deployed to British-operated hospitals in France. Um, and then, however, World War One is notable because it was the first time women who did not yet have the rights to vote were allowed to openly serve in the U.S. military. Uh, I think that's super. And then it says here, the Navy enlisted its first yeomanettes, around 12,000 women who served in the rank of yeoman, mostly working clerical duties as well as telephone and radio operators and translators. So there's all kinds of women throughout military history that have played vital roles. Am I cutting in and out pretty bad? No, you don't think so? No telling. No telling. All right, Stalls, who do you got up next?
Well, I was actually just trying to do some more research for some of the episodes I'm going to do later this week. But so Air Force Captain Christy Wise. If you don't know her story, she was a pilot in the Air Force. While on leave, she was involved in a boating accident and she lost a limb. She was out paddleboarding and was struck by a boat, lost a limb. And she is the first female amputee to regain her wings.
Mm,
So imagine the fight, the, you know, the guts it takes to come back from something like that and continue your service when easily she probably could have gotten out, but her drive and her determination to serve our country was greater than the loss of a limb, which we've had several men do the same thing, but it just goes to prove women can do the same thing that men can do. I always think about it as like you remember the commercials back in the late 90s, whatever you can do, I can do better. I can do
yeah,
anything better than you.
yeah,
That's kind of what I'm starting to see. Like, the more I dive into the history of women in the military, you start to see that it doesn't matter. Women aren't just a support role anymore. That's what for the longest time they were. They were a support role. They were there to support the troops in battle. But now you can see, I mean, we just back in I think 2018, the very first woman enlisted to be an infantry, 11 Bravo, very first woman out of Louisiana. So, I mean, the military's starting to come around. I think it's really starting to see that women can do more than just be a support role. So, I mean, there's tons of people, and I'm sure I'll cover a whole bunch more. But I mean, just from the list of people who I came up with today, um, Jacqueline Cochran. She was the appointed director of women's Air Force pilots during World War II, and she's the first woman to fly a bomber across the Atlantic. So, I mean, there's just tons of stories, and tons of women who've made a difference. I hate to say it, but uh, there's a lot of men in the military still who think about a particular female, and I'm not going to use her name on the podcast, but a particular female, and that's what happens when females go to war, and they think that every female is going to be like that. But I'm going to tell you, I've served next to some badass women, so you can say what you want, but there are some women that can beat my ass.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And they're out there, and unfortunately, in today's society, right? People look at, you got your males, you got your females, and a lot of people look at females as the inferior gender, right? Which is not the case, because there's a lot of females out there that, like you just said, can do your job better, if not better than you did. And they, like that lady that, she regained her wings after being, losing a limb. That reminds me of, the Navy diver. What's his name? Can't think of the name of him now. But anyway,
they did a movie based off
Brashear,
him with
Carl
Cuba
Brashear.
Gooding Jr., right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Carl
Carl Bashir.
Brashear. Yeah. I knew that because I met his son here in Louisville. Um, he fought all odds because, for one, he was African American. He got into a field that was all white males at the time, and then lost a limb, and they still are like, "Oh, you can't do it," and he still came back from that. The guts, the determination, the dedication, and for females to do that, they can do the same thing that we can do. And
Mhm.
I just wish people out there would understand, you can't knock a female because their anatomy is not of male stature. I've seen some female bodybuilders out there that would put me to shame. And of course, I'm fat and old now. That's what Claire said earlier. She said I was old.
I did not.
She frequently uses the term "old man."
Yeah,
So,
yeah. But there's a lot of females out there that deserve the recognition on their own merit, not because they slept their way to the top or whatever.
absolutely.
I think of my daughters, thinking about joining the military. And I told my wife way back when, I was like, I'm never going to tell them they can't serve in the military. I'm just going to tell them what they uh, what they need to look for and what they need to do to survive the military. And it shouldn't have to be that way. I shouldn't have to warn them, hey, when you go in the military, you need to look out for this, or you need to look out for that, because I
Mhm.
believe that females should be able to um, serve their country without somebody saying, oh, you slept your way to the top. No, if my daughter goes into the military and she becomes whatever, that she's getting it on her own merit, not because she's um my nephew's just joined on TikTok and he said he is old. uh
That's what I'm saying.
Thanks. Thanks. I know I'm old. I'm only 46, and I do got a lot of gray hair, but Jesus. But yeah, if females are out there serving their country, and this is for everybody who's watching now and listening later, whether you're watching on TikTok or whether you're watching on Facebook, LinkedIn, Rumble, YouTube, wherever, uh, don't look at females like they didn't earn their position in the military, because each one of them go through boot camp. They have to prove themselves in boot camp, and then once they get out, they have a harder time proving themselves within their job that they picked when they're serving their military. So respect the females out there. They earn their title of female veteran. You you have to respect them. And I don't care what generation you are, and I don't care if you were 80 years old and you have no respect for females. Respect the females that served our country. They signed a name on the dotted line just like you and I did. Respect them out there. That's what we have to do. So,
Yeah. Absolutely. And we actually, we have to credit they make up over 1/3 of the military, 38%. 38% of our military is female. So without 1/3 of our military, we would be weak.
yeah, definitely.
That's a big thing I say always too, is like, of course you do have, all the crazy cool, fighter pilots and all of, the women who are doing those awesome jobs and are doing fantastic at them too. But if you think about it, for a long, long, long time, who has filled the support roles, right? Who's continued to fill the support roles? That's what I was, right? That's what a
Yeah.
lot of women go into the military to do. They're your nurses, your doctors, your cooks, your, whatever, your admin. I mean, I hate to say it, but the military will not run without support.
Yep.
It's just how it is, right? And if, you don't have those women who fill a majority of those support roles, we wouldn't be near as, strong, like Saul said, so
Yeah.
that's just kind of my point.
So like I was saying earlier, when I was in the military, I was infantry. So I didn't see the supportive roles very often.
Right.
Like I said, maybe when I went to base dental or base medical, might have seen, females in the military then. But the Marine Corps couldn't run without our support. And that included all the female Marines that were out there. And they play a vital role in the Marine Corps. I can I can speak for the Marine Corps because I am a Marine, but they play a very vital role in like she said, logistics, admin, whatever. They played a very vital role, and without our support, the Marine Corps, which is the smallest branch out there, couldn't operate. So yeah, definitely gotta think about that. Each human that serves the military has a role to play, whether they want to be in the infantry, whether they want to be a fighter pilot, whether they want to be a nurse, doctor, you name it. Everybody has a role to play. And they get that position on their own merit, not because they slept their way to the top or whatnot, and there's a lot of male officers out there that um, worked their way to the top, but they slept a lot of stuff underneath the rug. So we just got to look at it that way. Yeah, Doc here. So Thomas Reardon's one of my good friends. He's a Navy corpsman from Desert Storm, and he's his even corpsman. So,
Mhm.
but it is that time of night. I want to thank you guys for coming on here and talking about this. So at the end of the month, Clara, we're going to do a tip of the spear, which is where we get a lot of veteran podcasters together, and we're going to talk about the disparity between female veterans and male veterans. If you would like to join that, you are more than welcome to join the panel. Because I think it's something that needs to be highlighted, especially during Women's Military History Month. Because a lot of you females out there, like you said, people say, "Oh, you slept your way to the top," the standard's different. Um, so I think it's something that we need to talk about and discuss on a much larger scale. And I think it should be a conversation that's ongoing by any veteran out there that hosts a podcast or but that's a social media influencer. I think it's something that needs to be highlighted So if you want to join that, I will send you the invite once I send out the email for that. It'll be the 26th, so it'll be a Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern. So if you want to join that, I'll let you know.
Yeah, we
But
can talk about that later
yep,
for sure.
definitely. Well, I want to thank you guys for coming on here and hanging out. Is there anything that we missed before we jump off of here?
No,
Anything?
I think we covered quite a bit. Just stay tuned.
Yeah.
I will be posting episodes this week. So
Stalls, tell people how they can find you on TikTok so they can follow you on TikTok.
it's Stalls, STALZ. You guys can follow me there. I also have a backup account. For that, my personal backup account is Stalls 2.0, and then I have my organization account, which is Veteran Bikers for 22 a day. So you guys can find me either way.
Awesome. Miss Claire, how can people find you on TikTok or social media?
On TikTok, it should just be my name, Claire Colburn, 81, and then kind of my backup account slash my service dogs account. Yes, he has his own TikTok. It's great. You'll love it. That should be Claire and Moose 0.
Nice, nice. Just want to give a big shout out to unapologetic veteran Josh. He's in TikTok. Also, Texas Flex. So if you don't follow Texas Flex out in Texas, they're doing tiny homes for homeless veterans out in Texas. It's got an organization out there, so go follow Texas Flex, Texas_Flex, and check them out. They're doing amazing things out there in Texas. I'm gonna be reaching out to Texas Flex and get them on the podcast. It'd probably be in June when we have them on. So I'll be reaching out to you, Texas Flex, to get you on the show. But I want to thank you guys for coming on, hanging out with me, and talking about something that's very important and should be talked about on a more grander scale. And hopefully this, I know there's a lot of buzz going on TikTok right now about this, but we also need to take it off of TikTok and bring it out to the masses. And I hope other veteran podcasters out there start talking about it more as well. Not just during Women's History Month or Military History Month. I think it just needs to be talked about on a larger scale. So I definitely want to thank you guys for coming on here and hanging out with me.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you for having me.
Hey, you're very welcome. If y'all want to hang out just for a few minutes before, just let me end the show and we'll talk afterwards.
Yeah, sounds good.
Man, how cool was that, everybody? I think that's something that we need to talk about, like I said, on a larger scale, the disparity of treatment between female veterans and male veterans out there, because it happens daily. And there's a lot of female veterans out there that served their country honorably, and some of them almost lost their life for their country, and some have. So we need to respect our female sisters out there. Our sisters served just like we did. So we need to give them all the credit where credit is due. But it is that time of night, everybody. As you see below, you got Heroes Media Group, Reese Across America Radio, Veterans Voice Radio, and Military United podcast streams. We are proud partners with all of those. So make sure you go follow them on all social media platforms to see what they're doing. You can also find Homefront Sitrep on Reese Across America Radio on Thursday nights at 11 p.m. Eastern. So go check us out there as well. You're not alone. Everybody thinks that they don't have somebody to reach out to, but there's a lot of people out there that are willing to be your stranger. And you have worth, you have value. Just wake up tomorrow because somebody wants to see you tomorrow, because they love you. And like I said, be someone's stranger. What I'm talking about there is we as humans, we're more apt to talk to a complete stranger than the ones we love the most because we want to protect them. So be someone's stranger. If you're out and about and you see somebody that looks like they're having a bad day, go up to them, say, "Hey, how you doing?" And if they give you the generalized, "Man, I'm hanging in there, I'm living a dream, I'm okay," then you have to ask the next hard question. How are you really doing? and be ready for that conversation, because that could be a 5-minute conversation, could be a 20-minute conversation, could be a 5-hour conversation. You just have to be ready for that conversation. And then if you notice the shirt that I'm wearing, it's Wax Poetic. I got it from sameoath.com. Small veteran owned company in Texas. It's right outside of Houston and Katy, Texas. Matt is a Navy veteran. Him and his wife own the company. We have a shirt on there called Marine It Down. It's a co-branded shirt. You can go to sameoath.com, scroll over to co-branded, and scroll down till you find the Marine It Down shirt. That shirt there, what happens with that shirt is each sale at the end of the year, HomeFront Sitrep gets 25% of that sale, and we donate that to a charity of our choice. Well, I say spinning wheel because we do a spinning wheel. So whoever the spinning wheel lands on is the nonprofit that we give that money to. We don't keep one penny of it. It goes right back into the veteran community. So the link is scrolling across the bottom of the screen, sameoath.com. So go check it out. Go order you a couple shirts, man. They got some really cool shirts out there. But I want to thank our guest for coming on and talking about a very sensitive subject matter. Great conversation. There's some great female veterans out there that served our country honorably. So go check it out. Go look at them and see what they've done. But like we always say on HomeFront Sitrep, stay safe out there. We got your six. Thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed this show.
Suggestions and comments are always welcome.
Cannot wait to have another great show with y'all.
Don't forget you can find HomeFront Sitrep on Apple, Amazon, Spotify, or wherever you get your favorite podcasts.
Stay safe out there. I got your six.